Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the next issue of NiUG's Plugged In podcast. I am speaking with Buck Hurlbut today, and we're going to get to know Buck a little bit. Many of you know his name. It's like all over our listserv, and we're so thankful for that. Or I shouldn't call it our listserv. I should call it the Imis Insider help area in our member community. And I want to talk a little bit about you today, Buck. I want you to tell us a little bit about you. How did you get started? Like you and I have had conversations where you have discussed with me how you got into the role of IT in general.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, well, first of all, thanks for inviting me on today. I can't wait to get through this today. This is a blast. I think I'm going to enjoy this. So, so I actually started computers in 1980 when the PC first came out. And I had programmed on mainframe computers prior to that. I think the very first program that I had ever written was on punch card. And then I got the chance to migrate from that to reel with a brief stint in the middle of those years where I programmed and saved the data and the software and whatnot on cassette tape for one client. But so I've been involved with IT pretty much from the inception of the PC, and bought my first set of tires for my car when I was a teenager with a program that I'd written for a paper warehouse on an IBM PC. So
wow.
Yeah, I unfortunately not the Bill Gates story that others have experienced. I
We
was
all
15.
dream of that story.
I know, wouldn't that have been nice? Oh my gracious, even at Christmas. I was 15 when I started my first company, and I started it with a buddy of mine. We had a write-up in the local newspaper when they found out a couple of teenagers were starting a software company, and I have that picture to this day. I go back to it and have fun with it when I'm teaching.
Right.
When I teach business at K-State, where I was teaching before, I always talk about how you're never too young to start a business. So anyways,
Right.
Started in 1980 and kept going.
Wow, that's crazy. It's amazing how far technology has come since then. You know, all the days of the floppy disk and swapping out cassette tapes at night and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm kind of dating us, but that's okay.
Well, but all that, you think about how much technology has changed. Even when you look at Imis, I mean, you look at how Imis went from desktop to where it's at now. And, the PC in just a very short number of years. And many of the people on the call watching us today are understanding what we're saying because they were part of the RPG and COBOL, early on writing of code, Pascal and all these early things that led us to where we are. We could have never been where we are without those early technologies. So
very true. And it's funny you bring up the past about Imis and the fact that, when I started back in, I think 92, 93, we were on LAN, and that was a bear. Like, I don't think a lot of users realize, because they weren't involved back then, how much it has changed through the years.
Yeah.
Especially now, and taking the software program that they had, which was just desktop, and then moving that to be staff site and then be Imis EMS, and just that evolution that the product has taken. How many years have you been dealing with Imis?
So I started in 2014.
Okay.
With Imis. Yeah. So it's been the last almost 8 years now.
Right. Wow. That's awesome. And, I talk about the Imis Insider and the fact that you're always helping with answering questions and very giving of your time. And again, we truly appreciate that here at NiUG. You make sure that you try to get in there and answer whatever questions that you possibly can if they've not been answered. So thank you for that. I also wanted to talk about the virtual advanced Imis user event that we're going to be having, most likely in July. So I've roped you into doing a class there. Do you want to talk a little bit about the class that you're going to teach there?
Yeah, sure. I'm looking forward to it, actually. So the topic that we'll cover during that is how to extend the Imis panels and forms with JavaScript. So with some very, very, like, I am not, I never went to school for JavaScript programming, and everything that I've learned is self-taught and as needed. Google is my friend. When I need something and I don't know how to do it, I go Google it and I find it, and then I create this compendium of JavaScript knowledge that I then have in my own knowledge base. I have a company knowledge base, so that as I use something and I refine it, and then when I do code for a client, I stick that code away, so then I can go back and return to it and use it for other clients, right? So, I mean, that's the beauty of object-oriented programming, and when we program correctly, we can take a piece of code, and we can move it from site to site to site to site to site. It doesn't matter what people call anything. If we do it right, we can just keep reusing the code, and it's a minimal investment for the client then, right? So we'll talk about some basic things, how to properly find the objects inside of the Telerik platform upon which Imis is constructed. Imis is built on the Telerik libraries, and that's what gives us our grids. That's what gives us our, that's where IQA gets its power. That's where the panel editors get their power, is all from the Telerik libraries that ASI uses. And so being able to tap that and then interact with that and augment that gives us a substantial amount of power. And I don't know if everybody realizes how much power you get when you mix some custom JavaScript on the client side. So we'll be talking about how to use basic JavaScript with forms, with panels, and how to augment ASI's logic, make it better. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm excited. You're excited to do that session. We've decided it's going to be a 2-hour session. So what's basically been transpiring as I pull this all together is I have yourself, and I have someone who's pulling together some information on an API session that could be anywhere from an hour to 2. Then I have Sarah Hodnott from Canada. She's going to be talking about advanced reports, and she's going to also do a session on crosstabs and change reports.
Sweet.
So it's going to be an exciting day. Jake Bound, hopefully from K2 and U Solutions, is going to help out as well. So it's going to probably turn into more of a two morning or a 2 afternoon program, because at this point we're already accumulating a lot of information, and I know we haven't had advanced training that often. We started the Advanced Tech Summit a couple of years back, but then COVID hit, and then we weren't having a whole lot of in-person interaction. So we're trying to bring some program to the advanced users. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So
the thing that I love about what you're saying is that we're extending knowledge past just basic out of the box usage. Imis is a powerful platform. I've been in IT now for 35 years, and longer than that if you consider the fact that I started my first business when I was 15, right? When you look at what Imis has to offer, and I see this as I'm working with clients, I don't think there's ever been anything that a client's asked me for that I haven't been able to give them, right? There's a third-party tool that gives me the ability to create something beyond. There's JavaScript, which gives me the ability to pretty much do anything in the UI. There's all sorts of stuff. And then when you put CSS on top of that and the ability to control CSS dynamically, there are just so many things that we have the flexibility to do in Imis. I tell people, you just dream it and tell me what you want to do, and we'll make it work. Somehow we'll find a way to make it. Even if we've never done it, we'll find a way to do it. It's just a matter of being persistent and creative,
Right.
And Imis gives, that's what I love about Imis. There's a platform that we can use that's extensible. So I'm excited that the direction you're going with this is to expand people's creative imaginations with what they could do, even if they don't know how. They can walk away and they can say, I know. Somehow we should be able to do that somehow.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of NiUG too, right? I've been involved with it since, I would say, even before I became executive director. I sat on their board, and then before that I was using the product, and attending their events that were only in the Northeast area of New Jersey. And even back then, it's amazing how you can sit there and just listen to a program. And people forget this about Imis. When you can sit there and listen to how somebody's teaching something about Imis, and it could be something you would never, ever dream of doing or needing for your own organization.
Right.
But your mind will just start churning, and you can think, oh, this would be great if I were able to tweak it just a little bit and do it here or there. So, and that's always been the beauty of Imis. So I'm excited as to where the product's going. I've seen amazing things, and I don't know if you're involved with the sprint calls, but they've been showing some amazing things on there. So I'm super excited to where it's going after, it's always progressed, and to be able to take what was at one point a land product and have to move that functionality that people have been accustomed to and develop it into a new system that's now Imis EMS. It's not easy. I'm glad I'm not ASI because, you're not just taking a software product and starting from scratch. Sometimes I think that would be easier, and that would be more of a challenge, to have to take existing product and still make sure you work into it all the stuff that has been used over the years. So that's my input.
I've had a number of interactions. I'm sure that ASI tech support is probably sick of me, because I end up, when I see things, I end up opening tickets, even if it's for the conversation, right? I'll open something, I'll say, like, for example, here's a spoiler alert. If you're doing a panel editor, you may or may not know, in the 2020 version, the cloud version, if you add in your panels, if you add created on and created by user key and edited or updated on and updated by user key, those are 4 fields that ASI automatically populates on every panel. So they'll fill in the date and time that the person added the record, and the GUID, the GUID of the person who did it, or the date that it was touched. And that's a new feature that was added. It's buried in the technology, in the help file. It says it's right there. But how many people go through the process of trying to find the things that have changed? And when you're the programmer, I've programmed systems for military, for oh my gracious, hospitals, attorneys. I've probably created systems in every sector of the US economy. I swear I probably have, to some degree, in the last 35 years. I think the weirdest system I ever wrote was one for a company that wanted to compare weights on dead cattle as they bought carcasses and transferred them across the nation. It's just, So
unnecessary evil, I guess.
I say, well, that's, for the dog food industry. So I say that only because when you see the amount that's been put into Imis, it takes a community like ours to be able to keep up with the things that are changing even. There are things that I will see that nobody else might, things that they'll see. And if we have an open communication, we post, you'll see that, like recently, in the last month, when I've come up with, when I've made observations that I felt were very important, I make sure to make a NiUG post. Like the other day, I put one on how to use Google search to search the help files in Imis, right? Because most people don't realize the power of Google with the Imis help files. And so I did a post on that. I did one on what I'm about to say now, which was, if you add marked for delete on and marked for delete by, it'll actually, if you populate the mark for delete on date inside of a panel editor, it'll make it vanish. It'll vanish from the panel. It'll vanish from IQA. It'll vanish from everything. There's code inside of the platform that stops those records from displaying if you have marked for delete on if it's a populated date. Now, I opened a ticket on that, and this is where I was headed with that. Like, that's one of those things that I ran into. It's a protocol that Imis uses in other files. I used it I used it in my panel editor and discovered it worked in the panel editor. I opened a ticket. I'm like, is this on purpose? Because it's not in the help file, and they don't know. So now they've got to go back to the programmers and say, did you mean to do that? So even, I say that to say, in a rapidly changing environment, it's a community effort, right? The programmers can't communicate it would be beautiful if they could, but programmers aren't going to communicate everything that they do. Sometimes they put things in when they're doing everything else, and it just slips through the cracks. But if we work together and we find things like that, we can update our technology, we can update the information base, and the entire Imis community then grows from it, right? So anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's our motto: share, compare, become more aware. And if we don't do that, then a lot of us don't know these existing issues or things that you can do with it that haven't been tried before. So
absolutely,
there's a lot of brilliant people in this community, and I think we all should take advantage of the fact that it exists and be able to do things that we never thought we could do. So
I agree. And I like one of the things, and some people might disagree. There's a little bit of a competitive edge on the NiUG boards. I don't know if you've ever picked up on this before.
Yeah.
But I like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that little bit of competition forces people to think outside the box. It's like, how can I one up this person, right? If I post something, I want other people on the board to look at what I'm saying and say, how can I make this better? Well, you know what, Becky said this, but it'd be better if you do it this way. I love it. I think that's awesome, because it makes me think, it makes the rest of the community think, and we get to build off of each other. That competition is not a bad thing. So
right.
I think hopefully people realize, I mean, I realize it's done in fun and sport, and I hope everybody that's watching this right now and on the boards realizes that it's fun and on sport too, but it's kind of like two people getting in the boxing ring. Have you ever seen, the MMA fights? They'll beat the crud out of each other, and when they're done, they'll shake hands and they walk out. And that's really the way a good competition should be. It should be, let's support one another, let's challenge one another, and let's propel one another to the next
exactly
level.
And I think that's exactly what it does. It challenges someone to be better at what they do, and see what could exist that they may not have thought of, and then add upon that and just make it even better. It's a great community, and again, happy that you're part of it. So all of this information that you've been giving me about software and where you came from in the industry, what do you do on your downtime? Do you ever have downtime?
I do. I'm actually writing my fourth book. So I've
book?
My fourth book. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So
okay.
So I'm in the midst of that. I just did about 1,700 hours of the research, and now I'm compiling that down into my fourth book. So I write books in my spare time.
Okay.
I work on certifications. So I'm working on the CIPIA with ASI. So I'm trucking along on that. I'm hoping to have that knocked off this year at some point.
Very cool.
If anybody on the community is not familiar with the CIPIA, they should go out and check it out. It's pretty cool.
What is it?
So it's for a performance improvement advisor. So the goal being to be very, very familiar with the performance improvement process ASI carries, and to be able to propel that and project that into the Imis community. And so it's a new certification that they just began the middle of last year, and it really only took teeth. My perception of where it's at this point, I would say it's taken teeth probably just in January. They had their first mentoring sessions in January of this year. So I suggest people go look at it, because striving towards, so I'm an educator, right? I taught at K-State. I was a professor at Kansas State University in the arts, science, and business, specifically in technology. I distance teach for a couple of universities out on the West Coast. And so I love education. I love when people learn. I love when people get it. The reason I love being involved with NiUG is because it gives me the chance to push myself. Sometimes people will put posts out there. They'll talk about things that they don't know how to do, and I don't know how to do it. And so I log into a test system and I figure it out, because it helps me learn. Their question helps me learn Imis even better. And then when I find the solution, I can go back and post it, right? So it's education is one of those things that will help us get out of the silos of mediocrity. And that's the piece that one of the reasons I try to be involved with this is I know how people just want to get things done. If I could just get past this, I could move on. And I'm a control person. I know what that's like. You spend 15 minutes trying to find something, like hide header. That was the change that they made on this latest version to get rid of an IQA column. It's hide header. Well, everybody's going out trying to use hide header, and you can't use it more than once. You do two of them, and then you get an error in your IQA, right? And so I'm like, okay, what can we do to figure out how to get rid of hide header? We've got to find another way to be able to hide multiple columns. And so I start hacking around and find ampersand NBSP works. So you can use that as many times as you want, right? Ampersand NBSP semicolon, and you can hide your headers. Well, if there wasn't some desire to learn pushing that, I would have just walked on and accepted the fact that hide header was only able to be used once, and now I've got to go use CSS when I want to hide headers in my IQAs. So there has to be, we as a community, we've got to have a desire to learn, and
Right.
we have to have a desire to invest in learning and to not be afraid to spend some private time trying to figure things out when we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we were all comfortable in what we do every day, then what would life be giving us? Not much. It would be a
Boy,
pretty
howdy.
boring life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Got to challenge ourselves.
So I like to learn in my spare time. There you go. That's what you're, I like to learn. I like to write books. I bought another couple of website domains. I'll be writing for those, putting blog stuff out on those. Just, yeah, that creative.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it has been amazing hearing your stories. I have to say, I got to know you a little bit in the last year or two, and just have been watching the listserv. I'm not on there all the time, but your name keeps popping up, and I've heard people, seen people very excited and very happy that you've been able to help them. So I wanted to at least take a few minutes and get to know you a little bit more, let everybody else get to know you a little bit more, so they can see that you're truly in this because you want to help people. And that is what this community is all about. So we appreciate that. And announcements will come out soon about the Advanced Imis user event that we'll be putting on. It will be virtual. And then also we have the roadshows coming up. We have one May 23rd in Illinois. And then we have one in June on the 13th. I'm hoping I'm not mixing up dates at this point. Check out the website. That's the best way to go about it. We have rescheduled those and pushed them out a little bit. So at this point, we have one in May, one in June, and one in July. And then we'll be also going to Toronto, hopefully Sacramento, and the New Jersey, PA area, which is where I'm from. So check those out. I want to say thank you, Buck. It's been a great conversation to have with you and get to know you better. And hopefully everyone else gets to know you better and reaches out to you and says thank you for all the great things that you've been doing on the Imis community, the Imis member community, and that is the imisinsider.niug.org. So check that out. And that is not to say that there aren't several other volunteers on there as well, and users that are consistently posting to there. And that's what I love about the community. Everyone is extremely willing to help and give of their time. So we thank everybody for that. So thank you so much, Buck. I'm going to let you go for the day. Thanks. And hopefully you'll have lots more time to learn today, and I haven't taken up too much of your time. You have a great day, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks. You take care.